This is the Wrist Podcast.
I mean, a lot of the employees were quite scared about it. There was a lot of fear around it also because we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what was coming. We just saw in the news all these people dying in Madrid and in Barcelona.
You don't need to take things for granted. Wherever you go, wherever you meet people, you have to stay alert, even if it's your friend or if it's your close relative.
I try to urge myself to think positively because we don't have any other choice. And when I go out for grocery shopping, I see those people who work in the supermarkets. They are still need to work there, and compared to them, I feel I'm much more lucky than they are.
Around 9:30, I felt something wasn't right. Around 10:30, 11 o'clock, it started. My whole body just started hurting. When it hit around 12:10, I knew something was wrong. It was coming too quick.
The Wrist Podcast with Gary Robinson.
You've just heard a few voices from Wrist colleagues from around the globe talking about their experiences of COVID-19. I'm Gary Robinson. In this Wrist podcast, we'll hear some very personal and challenging stories of resilience and inspirational examples of Wrist teamwork worldwide. So let's start in Houston. Danielle is the branch manager there. How personally challenging has the COVID experience been for her?
Yeah, it's very, very challenging because my son, he's 10, he's in 5th grade. He has his own issues. So he has dysgraphia and he's unmedicated ADHD. Not only am I responsible for helping him be in school and get the learning that he needs, but because of COVID, we've really isolated ourselves, probably more than a lot of people. I personally had COVID, and going through it was very, very difficult, and I want to make sure that my son doesn't go through it. It was before you could just go get a test. Back then, they didn't really have all of the symptoms that they do now. It was at the time, if you have a fever, if you have a dry cough, which I'm still not exactly sure what that is, shortness of breath and sneezing were the only symptoms that they really talked about at the time. And I had a horrible headache. At the time, we just had our first positive case in Houston. And so I thought it was due to stress. And because it wasn't one of those symptoms, I just kept thinking it was stress related. 3 days into having a headache, I started getting where I was really cold, but I was sweating. And so at that point, I went home and isolated myself, not really thinking it was COVID, but just I didn't know what it was. I called my boss and said, I'm going to have to work remotely the rest of the day. It was a Friday. I slept for 20 hours straight and woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. Then by that Sunday, I started sneezing a lot, which is really the first quote unquote COVID symptom at the time that I was aware of. So I was able to go get tested, which if you haven't done the test, it is very uncomfortable. It feels like they're scratching your brain. It came back 4 days later that I was positive, and I had no idea because it wasn't like the traditional symptoms that they were saying you would have. But as it went on, I started developing other symptoms that were a lot more scary. So my heart would race. And then I would have periods of time where I would completely black out. I couldn't see anything. And I felt like I was having a heart attack. And it lasted for weeks. Even once I wasn't positive anymore, the exhaustion level was just incredible. I mean, every few hours I felt like I had to sleep and just couldn't stay awake. And then that lasted for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then it started where I would shake uncontrollably, it'd be difficult typing because my hands would just shake nonstop. I would say now I feel like I'm back to myself, luckily, but it was a very scary time. And because of the disease or virus, you are so isolated when you really just want somebody to hug and take care of you and tell you it's going to be okay.
This is the Wrist Podcast.
The Rist branch in Valencia opened up while COVID was taking hold right across the world. How did the team in Spain deal with the situation? Branch manager Jens.
I mean, when we started in February, March to hear about this COVID situation, especially here in Spain, where it was I think it was the worst country in Europe. I mean, a lot of the employees were quite scared about it. There was a lot of fear around it also because we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what was coming. We just saw in the news all these people dying in Madrid and in Barcelona and of course, people were quite scared. So, I mean, we have been adapted into the situation by, of course, sending everybody home from the office, only having like the logistics, the invoicing, customs, and so the necessary employees here in our office that needs to be here to be productive enough to get our business running. And of course, we also have the warehouse people, the drivers, and so on, which of course is not able to do work from home. So they have been more exposed, and of course has been a little bit more afraid about the situation. But I think, and I just want to highlight that I'm very, very proud of the team, the way they have handled everything. We actually in May we had a turnover record. Where people were working, a lot of people, around 50% of our people were working from home, adapting into the new situation. So I must say I'm very proud of the team, how they have tackled the situation in overall. We could get into a potential second wave of this virus. So of course, I would say be precautious. Don't let this don't take this lightly. Be serious about it. It's not over yet.
This is the Rist Podcast.
Now let's go to Dubai. Logistics lead Benil and his colleague Carla, who is promoting QHSE, share their stories.
Almost all the drivers have been affected, and once it comes to the office again, we've been some of the accounts team has been affected. And they are also showing the same thing, like fever, shortness of breath, and some of them are not even showing any symptoms. For my particular case, I was like, does not have any symptoms at all at the initial time. Then again, going forward, for me, it's like a sore throat came. So it was like 1 day, 2 days. So at the time of symptoms showing, we've been isolated back to our room, and we never come to the office. Even at small symptoms, we are isolating the team at that particular time. So the same thing happened to me also. Once I have the sore throat, I've been isolated into my room, and I never came back to the office. Only 2 of the positive cases had some kind of extra problems with them, since they have the asthma kind of issues they had before, like they have previous health issues, and those 2 of them face a little time to recover as well, and they face around after negative, they face again same kind of symptoms, and they took more than 21 days to recover from the COVID. And after that particular 1 month period, they are perfectly going back to their normal life. Their health is so far perfectly well, and no other symptoms or any issues.
I have been tested once, and thanks God I was negative, because during that time there are some people who got positive in the office. Since I am also in contact with them, in touch with them, so as much as I can, I really wanted to boost my immune system. That's the only thing that you can fight COVID, because hospital is my number one enemy. I don't want to get hospitalized and stuff, so that's my greatest fear, to be in the hospital. I have to move on. It's not only me who's facing this, it's the entire world. So the only thing that you can, you need to focus. So you have to boost your immune system. You need to get proper sleep for your mind and body to get strong enough to ward off these pathogens. So I guess that's the best thing to do. Life must go on regardless of the pandemic. Communication is the key, because not everyone is here in the office. So that's as what our higher management have always keep on telling us and advising us. If you can't get hold of them through email and stuff, try to use your mobile. So I guess at that case, but sometimes it's really, really difficult because people, if they have to work at home, sometimes they have up and down of internet connection. So the only thing is you have to use your mobile phone. We are all in this battle, so we must play our part as well. We have to follow what are the authorities have in task us to do. Wearing masks, follow social distancing, and do personal hygiene measures. That's the only thing we can do. This is the new norm now for this 2020, but with this pandemic situation.
This is the Wrist Podcast.
We heard earlier from Danielle in Houston, who told us about her very personal experience of COVID-19. Her colleague, warehouse manager Josh, describes here how quickly symptoms of the virus can take hold.
Around 9:30, I felt something wasn't right. Around 10:30, 11 o'clock, it started, my whole body just started hurting. When it hit around 12:10, I knew something was wrong. It was coming too quick. So I called my wife, and what I started doing, I started disinfecting while I was calling my wife. We were done for the day, and to find a testing facility. Well, she found a testing facility that would give you your results in 15 minutes. So by the time I went there, it was probably a 40-minute drive. I just, again, when you're sick and you have congestion, you feel something's not right. I got to the doctor's office. They checked me. Probably about 20 minutes later, I got my results. I walked out. I lived 15 minutes away from the doctor. By the time I got to the doctor's office, I could barely drive in my driveway. And walking up stairs to my bedroom was difficult. I mean, my whole body hurt. I wasn't running fever, so that I was a little concerned. And when I laid down, I was out. I started cold sweating in bed, and that was with 3 blankets on me. So it was difficult. It was painful. I was probably into my 13th day when I set up the appointment to go retest. And when I went to go retest, they informed me that I no longer had the virus but had the antibodies. So I was around the 15th day when I returned to work. I still suffer from shortness of breath. I'm a large man, not too large, but I'm a bigger guy, so I kind of attribute it to, being on the warehouse working all the time, but I still think I have an issue with shortness of breath. I am diabetic, so I know my levels aren't as stable as they used to be. It's taking a lot more time to get it stable, obviously with better eating and all that, which is what we're doing, but I would say be vigilant. I would say continue on following the safety protocols and do not get lax. The minute we start getting lazy on procedures is when it's going to bite us. And I highly recommend not to get lax on that, because this is nothing to play with.
The Wrist Podcast.
Next is Operations Manager in Dubai, Charles, talking about some of the practical challenges raised by COVID-19 and how his experienced team made all the difference.
The drivers in particular, I think, felt it the most once the full lockdown was in place. We had to obviously use third-party logistics, and some of our drivers and helpers contracted COVID-19. So, they were having to quarantine. Some ended up in hospital. Some have pre-existing cases. So it's been different periods of recovery, different ways of recovering. Some took longer. Obviously, those with pre-existing conditions were on the more severe side of things, so they were hospitalized and had to go through multiple tests until they were obviously found to be 2 negatives and showed no further symptoms of COVID-19. Only then could they then be, say, from the hospital into quarantine rooms where they remained for another 14 days. So, yeah, my team in general, the people, my supervisors here have been here for numerous years, some 10, some 14 years. So, they know the staff, the staff know them, and they've been great leaders for the staff, down the management chain, just keeping the guys motivated. Again, operations doesn't stand still for any long periods of time. And, but our logistics side of things have been amazing. My logistics supervisor, Vanil, he's kept the drivers motivated when there was no work to do while the guys were quarantined, hospitalized, etc.
The RISP Podcast with Gary Robinson.
Hannah is a regional category manager based in Dubai, and she joined the team from her home country of China. Although, and thankfully, Hannah hasn't contracted COVID-19, the virus does bring other challenges.
I just relocated to UAE before they put the country into lockdown. So after that, then I spent like 7 months working at home. I also expect that I can make some new friends here as a new person in here, but I cannot really go out to meet people, not just the suppliers, not just some locals here, but also my colleagues, because I cannot go to the office. For me, I prefer to have I can see them and I can really talk to them face to face. But I also understand, because now this is the measure we've taken to make sure everybody is safe. So I have to adapt to this and also to accept this and try to get used of this kind of way, because I think even after this COVID, I think it will kind of become some new ways of working. We will have more time to working from distance. So sometimes I also have some very down moments, as sitting at home and I'm feeling, I feel I'm like an island, like you're only on your own and nobody can come close to you, and then you cannot reach out to others. Sometimes I really feel very bad about this, but I try to urge myself to think positively, because we don't have any other choice. And when I go out for grocery shopping, I see those people who work in the supermarkets. They are still need to work there, and compared to them, I feel I am much more lucky than they are. Sometimes when you are sitting here and then you are on your own, and then sometimes maybe you receive some emails, maybe from suppliers or customers, you feel, oh, this is a really tough one to reply, and then you start to feel nervous. But I think I have feel that if I just don't procrastinate, just do it, and it's not that difficult than you imagine. Sometimes I think we put too much pressure on ourselves, think that the things I'm going to do is very, very difficult, but actually it's not. If you don't procrastinate and then just trying to solve it as soon as possible, and then you will feel like it's more, you can be more under control of what is happening.
Following on from Hannah's story, here is team leader Ibrahim in Dubai talking about remaining vigilant and the importance of communication.
I would say that we remain vigilant on each cases. You don't need to take things for granted. Wherever you go, wherever you meet people, you have to stay alert, even if it's your friend, or if it's your close relative, or if you're going in an outside world. It has to be, you have to be vigilant. You have to wear your protective equipments and social distancing. And on work related basis, I felt that you have to be more communicative between the team members and between the branch members. So I felt that communication is the key going forward in every aspect. If you don't communicate, you will not get the things done at the moment. So it is important that communication within the team, within other members, it has to be the main factor that needs.
The Risk Podcast with Gary Robinson.
Nicola has been part of the COVID-19 response team since January. So what are the reflections of the team?
We want to say a big thank you to all of the colleagues who took part in the podcast today and openly shared their stories. It's really important to recognise that each one of us have been impacted in some shape or form. And as we heard, good communication and mutual respect can go a long way to help us through this together. Being part of the COVID-19 response team since January, we continue to review the COVID-19 protocols and guidelines in an effort to protect you. Without you, our business cannot operate. So on behalf of the COVID-19 response team, I want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you.
From me, your host, Gary Robinson, please continue to stay safe wherever you are. And let's leave the final word to Danielle in Houston.
We're all safety officers, not just of ourselves, but of our team. We all have a responsibility to ourselves, our families, and each other to call out anyone that's not abiding by those things. You know, it's not just the branch manager or the leaders on paper. It's really every last person. And, I'm proud to say that I see those things happening daily as I'm in the office. So, we've taken a lot of measures in Houston with the temperature taken, and, we do an infectious disease remediation once a month that kills the virus for 30 days and, all those things. But really, it comes down to every person taking responsibility for themselves. There's varying degrees of what people believe. There's people that believe the virus isn't real. There's people that believe, I'm healthy and I'll be okay. And then there's people that are very concerned, and everywhere on the spectrum. And so if we just each do our part, it'll keep not just us safe, but it'll keep our families and loved ones safe.
The Risk Podcast.
Hi there, this is Lars Bumholz speaking. Hope you're all doing good. Please join me and other Risk colleagues by listening to the next Risk podcast, where we'll be discussing our new vendor integration solution, Let's Connect. This podcast is out end of October. In the meantime, stay safe, everybody.